Welcome everyone to another episode of the Cougar Cast. This is episode number 7, and we're very excited for what we've got planned today. We have a very special guest with us, and I'm Daniel.
I'm Olivia.
And we're very excited to have all of you guys here.
So, just a little bit more information about our guest. So his name is Johnny Pishkar. He has 5 older brothers, and he was born in Guatemala, but moved to Missouri in 2002. He lived there for 17 years and then moved back to Guatemala in 2019 and has been there since. He's a missionary in Guatemala and works with Living Gateways. Since he studies mental health, he collaborates with psychologists and counselors. Part of his work is helping third culture kids in just mental health problems overall. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us here, Johnny.
Yeah, it's great.
We're really
great
excited.
to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank
So would you like to, is there anything that you would like us to know? So today, the topic, I want to introduce it. It's more on mental health and ministry, and specifically with third world culture kids, right?
It's actually that's kind of like what I wanted to start out with, because it kind of gets to get confused with the term of third culture and third world culture, you know. And so, like a third world country is what you call a developing country, but a third world culture kid is someone who has spent some time of their life living in a different culture besides their passport culture. Does that make sense? So, it is very, I think it'll be great, to talk about this topic right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so can you kind of tell us about mainly what you want to be covering today? Is there anything specifically that you want to be talking about?
Yeah, and a little bit about your background.
Sure.
Who you are and what you do as well.
Sure. Well, you pretty much like read my whole life there. So yeah, I'm 48 years old this year. And yes, I'm from Guatemala, and I'm just so thankful that God calls us back here. It's so easy to say those kinds of things, but the call of God, sometimes you really don't know what entitles for your life, but it really is out of our testimony in mental health and how we found Jesus in this area that I think sometimes we just don't think about it much, and we kind of like put it in the back burner, and we don't really care for ourselves, how we're doing really ourselves.
And could you tell us a bit about how you became involved in mental health? How did you get involved with the ministry? Have you always been interested in that kind of thing? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Not at all, actually. I honestly didn't even want to be involved in it. But what happened was actually it was me, the one that I started to deal with depression. And I was in ministry. So I was a pastor, an executive pastor in the States in an American church. And I worked for so long in there. But again, we just sometimes go and go and go, and you give and give and give. And sometimes you just don't care, don't take care of yourself, Like we forget that pastors, leaders, you guys, everybody who's in any room, teachers, we are also individuals. And we have families, you have sisters, you have your siblings, you have uncles, you live in a home. And, every month the bill will come and you have to pay the bills. You got to pay. And these are stressors, that happen. Like a pastor will be, man, my toilet broke. And you don't think those things, because sometimes they're in the pulpit and they're preaching and they're just encouraging you and stuff like that. But you don't know what they're really what's happening in their lives. So that's what happened to me. Like I was going and going and going, and I really never stopped to realize how much I was giving without actually caring of my own self. So I found out myself in depression. It was actually one of those things that sometimes we don't like to talk about, or anxiety or things like that, mental problems. I was one that, I don't know if you guys have seen those commercials though, well, like where it says, if you suffer from depression, and I was one that was on the couch and will be like, you just get over yourself, like just pray more, or just be happy, or something like that. And I just never really realized how much that was going to be impacted in my personal life.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so also, could you tell us about Living Gateways and you guys' ministry?
So then, I was, again, I wasn't interested in any of that stuff. So Yeah, in 2019, actually, before we came to Guatemala, I suffered from a very crazy trauma where I just hit rock bottom, depression, anxiety, and I started to develop panic attacks, strong ones, not
Yeah.
just really strong anxiety attacks to the point that I couldn't even move or even get out of my own bedroom, and I had to have the lights on and all that. And then, just God just really put in our hearts that, there was probably a lot of people here in Guatemala. Remember, I'm from here. So I was born here. And I was actually not just born here. I was born in Chichicastenango, which, if you know a little bit of the history here, unfortunately, here in Guatemala, we had a civil war. And a lot of that stuff I dealt with. And I didn't even realize that as a child, I grew up in war.
Yes.
I saw several things that probably a lot of children shouldn't see. And honestly, just to be here today, it's just, for me, it's a miracle because really there's a lot of people that deal with those kinds of things. So I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
And so
Living
did you wanna
Gateways,
ask
sorry,
me?
I didn't answer that one though. So
Yeah, you're good.
So Living Gateways was born out of that.
Okay.
So God just calls us back to Guatemala to minister into that area specifically, into mental health, counseling, psychology, psychiatry, and just really not be, it's a taboo, right? Like, oh my gosh, you're going to go see the psychologist. And so it must be crazy, or, like, get over yourself, kind of thing. And now that I have what I had to deal with, now I understand. It is a need, even in our Christian circles. So, yeah. That's what we do for Living Gateways.
And does Living Gateways, do you guys have a goal? Is there any accomplishments that you guys have had, especially in the areas that you guys have worked? What do you guys do other than just like psychiatry?
Well, we also have a feeding program as well. Little kids,
okay.
we feed 45 kids monthly. And that's cool. We just want to provide a safe environment for them, and we feed them, we teach them, and whatever. But really, the main focus is with leaders, pastors, and really the people in general here in Guatemala. I say Guatemala now, but like, who knows? But we have seen so much need on that area. But it's like there's so much need, but people also want to hide it, right? Like, it's not something that you go out there and broadcasted. So I'm excited that we are able to do this because we can talk about this without having to have like this, oh my gosh, maybe I'm dealing with something and I need to care of myself, which would be great.
Yes. And, you talk about the needs and the issues that are in Guatemala. Would you like to tell us more about what those issues are and what that is? What are some of the main things that a lot of people are struggling with and how you guys have been able to help?
For sure. Like one of the things, especially for pastors, I think they deal with that. They deal a lot of exhaustion, burnouts. And if you know what burnout is, just that. Like, you just give and give and give and give. And then you also have family within yourself as a pastor or as a leader. And then the children in a missionary as well. Like, the children grow with some conflict because dad and mom sometimes are not there for them. That's one thing. That's just one little thing. Then, of course, just think about this. There's a pastor, right? And the pastor has a congregation, and the congregation comes with him and talk about their problems, right? Okay, so talk about probably something that this person wouldn't talk to anybody else, and then comes to church on a Sunday morning and sits in front of you, and you are the pastor who knows exactly what's going on with that person who might have a problem with the other person in the congregation. How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
How do you
it
go
would be
about
really
it?
difficult.
It is a very difficult position. And, of course, here in Guatemala, unfortunately, we have a high. There's a statistic that says that there's a 75% of people here in Guatemala that deals with some sort of mental health issue. And that comes from, it came from the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yep.
And does your ministry also focus on mental health for third culture kids, or?
Well, this is a need that happens, and we wish we can have a little more of that. We do have some psychologist friends of ours who are English-speaking people from the States who can provide that. I'm not really sure how it is here in CAG? Do you guys know? Do we have a counselor or somebody who actually you guys can talk to, when something like that happens?
Do you know anything about that?
I think we do.
Okay.
I think that, yeah. I think that we do, because I've heard of a few people that work in CAG or that are known throughout CAG, but it's not something that I've heard of a lot. Necessarily.
The reason why I'm saying that is like, if we see I'm going to ask you that question, like, where is home for you?
Wow. Where is home for me? I would say that home travels wherever my family is. I think that especially since my family is in the States, but I, live in Guatemala with my mom and my dad and my brother. I would say that wherever they are is when I feel like most at home. It's easier for me to adapt. And obviously the answer of, wherever the Lord is where home is. And so I think that I've gotten better at trying to answer that question, but it's still difficult because, there's conflict of, I was born in the States, but this is where I grew up,
right. Where is home? Where's home for you?
Well, for me, I guess it's here in Guatemala because this is where I've grown up, where I've lived my whole life. So I guess for me, it's not that difficult as other people.
Exactly. Like if you can see the difference between the answers, like I asked you the same question to you, and you took a little more time to answer that question because you have to think about, okay, I was born in the States. I have family in the States. I don't know if you were born. Sorry, I didn't hear that. But anyway, so like my family's in the States, but I'm in Guatemala, and I adapt here in the culture of Guatemala. But you were like, yeah, well, I guess my home was here in Guatemala. There was not much of thinking on that. So there are two things that happens with third culture kids is that exactly, like you have this conflict of, wow, where is home for me? And then like, that sometime at some point you have to like move back maybe to your home country, to your passport country. And then once you're there, I don't know how you feel. Do you feel at home?
I think that when I'm around my family, I feel more at home, but maybe just like being alone or if I'm going on a walk, it feels a little unfamiliar because it's like I visit this place, it's where I was born, but I only really visit it.
You're not like, it feels kind of odd, there's this conflict that happens. But then again, we're in a community that is actually, we can call it a cross-culture kids too. Yeah. Because, now I'm going to use you as an example, like you're from Guatemala, right? But you come to a school that is an American school. It was founded by missionaries who are from America. And this school, like the majority of the things that happen here are American, United States, American just kind of culture. And then here you are, you come here to live with everybody else. And, we also have Korean culture here, right? So like there is this conflict that happens. So you guys come and try to mingle with each other, right? And you learn this culture within yourselves. And then you go back home. And home for you is different than your home. Easy difference, like for me, and this is something that happens to us, in our home. We invite people here from Guatemala to come and just hang, right? And it's like, can I use your bathroom? It's like, yeah, it's like right there, And I already said yes, and then they come back and say, again, ask me permission to use the bathroom. I'm like, I already told you, this is something that you don't think about, but you just do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's so in the culture, and you deal with those conflicts, right? So when you go back home is not the same as the school. And then how do you deal with that? Yeah. So that's why these things are very important to talk about, because then you have this unresolved sometimes. And I talk about the grief. I'm going to talk about the grief now, because that's part of what we were going to be talking about. As mental health related problem is that if there is so much unresolved grief, because you lose a lot of stuff. And I'm going to focus to the people that probably are international, right? Like the kids that come here. When you move from the States, we lost a lot of things. And whether we like it, of course, it's God's call in our lives and, whatever. And the other thing is that it's God calling me and not really my kids to do these kinds of things, So it's like, okay, how do I do this? Like how do I handle this kind of thing? So you come here and then you tell your kids that it's like, well, let's go, because it's God's calling in our lives, right? You tell that to your kids. And in our case, when we moved back to Guatemala, we didn't lose it. We sold everything. So that means we sold our homes, our cars, and even the toys, everything. And this is what happened to us when we moved. We actually, totally bad thing. So like we sold everything. We put the house in the market, and we forgot to bring some stuff from the kids. And the kids went with one of our friends, to the house, and my kids saw their stuff
Oh, wow.
being put up for sale. So it's like, why are we selling my stuff? So you're losing stuff. You're losing friendships. You're losing family. Even though they are there, you're losing those kinds of things. Even the normal things that we were talking about, right? Like the normal stuff that you do in that culture, you lose it. You lose it, and that becomes an unresolved grief. And then the thing about it is that we kind of like put it on a place where we say, no, you shouldn't grieve, because the joy of the Lord is in you, so you should be happy, but you're not happy.
Yeah.
You're sad. You're leaving stuff. You're having to grieve that stuff. So grief is something very natural, and I want to encourage you guys to really take some time to grieve sometimes those things, because that's part of the deal, that sometimes we just don't take the time to do that, and we just kind of like stuff it. And we don't deal with it. We don't allow ourselves to do that. We don't give permission to ourselves to grieve those things, to say, you know what, I am really sad. Like it could be just like I don't know, like a teddy bear or something little, but you're like, man, I miss it.
Yeah.
It's not the same, the smell of stuff, like it doesn't smell the same as like it does. And then the same for you if you were to move somewhere else. It happens. This is a thing that happens. And so this is what I'm saying. Like it is a conflict that a lot of people deal with. And I think especially here in our community, where you have a lot of people that are missionaries, a lot of people that have business parents, people that have to move, or people that are like in diplomacy, or that they are in the government and they have to move to a different country. And this is like the story. I have a story here that says about Erica, that she lived in Singapore for many, many years, and now she's 23 years old, and she's going back now to the States in her case, and she's going in the plane. And I don't know if that has happened to you, but like you're in the plane and you start to look down, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving this place now. And why do you feel that attachment? And why do you feel these things of, man, this culture has, in your case, maybe you don't feel it like that, but like for you, you might feel that eventually, you might have to move. I don't know, but like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving this now. All my friends again, all of the things. And this is something that happens a lot. There is a lot of unresolved, and a lot of it is because there is no time. There's so many people that come, right, and go.
Yeah.
Like they come here for a 2-year period, and some people that might be thinking, you know what, I'm going to be there forever, and then something happened because life happens, and then you have to move, and then the friendships that you have to lose them again. And it's like this. There is like it's not like a long time, like for example, you are going to move, you're just hanging out with his friends, but you're going to see him still, for however long, but for other kids, it's like, oh my gosh, here I go again. Like, why would I even put the effort to become a friend of somebody that I know that he might leave me in a week or so, or in a month, or in a year? Why would I want to go into that friendship, like that? It is hard. And the thing is that, like I said, we think that that happens. That's just part of the life of somebody who is a third cultural kid, that you're going to deal with that because your parents, that's the career that your parents choose, of moving to a different culture. And yeah, it's just very, very, again, it's unresolved. And what that means is that eventually that is going to come out if you don't deal with that. Yes.
So what would you say then is the correct way to like resolve that grief or to deal with that grief so that later on in life it doesn't like come back in a bad way?
That's the thing, like I would suggest you guys to always, again, the reason why I ask about a counselor or somebody that gives you that place that you can talk to. And, of course, if you have a great relationship with your parents, always talk to your parents. I'm dealing with this stuff. And then to us parents, also know that this is a real deal for your kid as well. Like, we go into this mode of, oh no, you're gonna have friendships, where you're going, and it's true. You're gonna develop other friendships, but what you're leaving, you have to have that time to grieve. To tell you that grieving is okay. To be feeling sad, it's okay. You're gonna move on. It's okay, and give that space to talk about those things and just talk about it. Say it. Don't stuff it. Don't just leave it there in your heart. So that's one thing, just having somebody to talk to for sure.
And now what would you say is like the balance between like stuffing it all up and then spending like vast amounts of time in grief that you don't need to, like spending your whole life grieving over something? Like,
right.
Where do you find that balance?
Well, scientifically, you shouldn't be grieving for more than like 6 months. Once you pass 6 months, then you really have to think about, okay, then there is a problem here. It's just what happens is that it's so connected to depression, because then you can go into a state of depression, and then of course now we're dealing with again something else. This is why it's important to talk about it. The main thing is talk about it. And grieving, the thing about it with the grief is that you just don't know when that's going to hit you either.
Yeah.
Like, I lost my mom. I mean, and I say that I lost her. I know she's in heaven, but she's not here anymore, And yeah, there are times that, oh my gosh, there is a picture right there. And it's like, it just like, I wasn't sad. I wasn't anything. And all of a sudden it's like, poof, just hits you.
Yeah.
And then if you go into the mode of, oh, I should be happy, and you're like fighting yourself. No, it's okay to feel sad. Cry about it, give yourself some time, just a day or whatever, go to the Lord, pray. God knew when he said that we needed to pray, he knew that it was important for us to do that. It's a conversation that you have with him. So pray, seek friendships that will encourage you. People that will say, hey, let's understand what you're dealing with, but eventually you have to walk. And you're right, you do have to walk. Because otherwise, if you don't, then yeah, it turns into depression. And then we're dealing with something else.
And how would you say you can like, either parents or people in leadership can like foster and create safe spaces for kids and teenagers to open up? Because many times teenagers don't want to open up, maybe because they don't feel safe. What would you say perhaps to
that
to
is
parents?
Exactly right. I think teenagers, you guys know when something is fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like, and that's fake. I don't want to talk about that. That. And then the other thing is that there's what you said at the end. How can we make or create this environment where it's safe? And what does that mean? Like with your parents first, I will say, is there a safe space in there? And again, if you don't have that safe space, this is why Living Gateways is, for. We want to create those spaces where you can actually say, you know what, I don't feel great. And my kids, all of us, we definitely believe in this, and we hey, if you need to talk to somebody, it's okay. You don't have to talk to me. It's okay. But again, it has to be somebody safe, a professional. And, because of our organization, we believe there has to be somebody who's a Christian, who's a follower of Christ, where foundation is Jesus and his word, to seek for help too. Because there are psychologists out there are psychiatrists, nothing wrong with it. It's like any doctor or anything. But the tendency will be, for example, if somebody is not a believer or somebody who does not withhold the Christian beliefs, then probably, the counseling will be, well, if you feel like you want to do that, then just do that, right? And then we're talking about this identity, right? So somebody who's not Christian based will allow those kinds of things, while somebody who's Christian will tell you, okay, where's your identity? And then if we are going into God's word, and this is something I wanted to say too, is like our identity is not where you're from. Your identity should be Christ, right? In God's word. That's really the example that we should follow. So yeah, and for the parents, just really allow these kinds of things. Allow your kid to grieve. Allow your kid to make mistakes. I mean, it's nobody's perfect. I mean, I'm taking a big breath here just because, I mean, it happens. It happens, guys. We all are growing up. Nobody's perfect. And allow that, like, it's okay. If you're going to make a mistake, it's okay. Make it safe if it's okay. Make it a place that is trusted, that you can actually say, I can say these things. But I know it's difficult. And that's why I suggest, counselors and psychologists and things like that.
Yeah. I definitely think that's really important to create, a safe environment, because I've met a lot of people where they haven't had that environment, and it ends up coming up in a lot stronger ways in their future, or the way that they express their feelings is maybe through physical harm or through something that it's a lot worse than just talking to someone about it. And so I think that within families and sometimes even relationships and friendships, it's important to be open with each other and say, hey, it's normal to feel these things and to experience this, and not to alienate them, because in the end, that's only making them worse and making them feel worse.
Yeah, and definitely that's a thing. Like, a lot of people feel like they're doing it by themselves. Like they are the only ones that are feeling that. And again, shame, comes with shame, saying that I'm dealing with depression. Oh my gosh, what are everybody's going to think about me? If you're feeling that, please go and talk to somebody. It's okay. And that's what I'm saying. Like, create those spaces where people can actually talk. And again, I know this is it's like this topic where you need to also be wise, right? Like, you're not gonna go talk to somebody and then all of a sudden the whole academy knows about it, right? So this is why you have to be wise about it. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to say anything that, get you guys in trouble, but, like, you go with your friend and talk about something that is so dear within you, and you talk to your friend and all of a sudden you hear that everybody else is talking about it. How safe is that? It's not safe at all. So that's what I'm saying. It is important to have somebody else completely outside sometimes, even of those circles, to be able to be vulnerable. And actually being able to be honest and say, hey, you know what? I really am dealing with this stuff.
I think that also one of the things is that, as someone who went to a really small school where I was around a lot of older kids, like in high school, like as a middle school kid, I would be around a lot of high schoolers, and they would be going through a lot of difficult things. And unfortunately, they didn't have safe environments. And all of a sudden I had seniors and juniors coming to me as a middle schooler telling me about these problems that they have, and I'm in 7th grade. I'm like, okay, I don't really know what to do. And I felt a lot of pressure, because then they'd be like, don't tell anyone.
Right.
And it's a lot. It was really scary for me. At first I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be the cool friend. I'll talk to you. You're a high schooler. But then it became a lot, especially that they would, especially since they didn't have safe environment, they would harm themselves physically, and I would have to see that, and I'd be like, don't do that. They'd be like, well, I don't know what else to do, and I'm like, I'm just a kid. I can't tell you how to solve it. And so it's also especially for like maybe the safety of younger students in smaller communities, that these people have safe environments, because you don't know how what you may be going through may affect someone else.
Correct. And that's the thing. Like, you have to be very wise with that. But that's what happens, though. The problem is happening, right? This struggle is happening. amongst, I don't know, making a statistic here. I don't have no idea what would that come with, how that those numbers will come back to us, here in our community. We don't know. But the problem is it's happening. It's like what we call the elephant in the room, right? Everybody knows it's happening, but nobody is wanting to create that environment where we can actually talk about those things. And how can we do that? And it starts with this, you guys. Like, it starts with this, to be able to talk about those things and say, you guys, there's no shame on that. The only one that brings shame is Satan, of course, is our enemy. And he will bring shame to you. He will bring guilt to you. He will bring all these things to make you feel and just shut you down and not talk about those things. And then, of course, we try to cope with those kinds of things with, unfortunately, phones and social media or whatever, self-harm. And unfortunately, that's the ultimate unfortunate, right? Like, some people decide, I don't find any other solution here, so I'm gonna just take my life. And that is where it gets scary, because no one knows. I mean, everybody, what the craziest thing is, like the most dangerous thing is, like, you will see people laughing. You will see people being almost like the center of the attention, and you say, "Man, he's so happy! Like, oh my gosh, he makes us laugh all his like the life of the party."
Yeah.
But you have no idea, really deeply, how he is doing or she is doing, and that's why it's important, to have these kind of conversations. And I'm so proud of you guys for doing, and thank you for having me and talking about these kinds of things, because I think it is important to talk about these things. Yeah.
Yeah, and now to start wrapping it up, what would you say, just briefly, some last words of advice for students who may be dealing with these types of things that we've been talking about? And then afterwards, we'd like to know how we could be praying for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. One of the things is this, just create these kind of conversations. I will encourage you all, in your classrooms and whatever you guys do, to create this kind of environment where people can actually have this place to talk, and that is safe. And of course, you can talk to your teachers, directors, whatever. And also just know that having grief and feeling those losses in your life, it's okay. It's normal, and it's part of life sometimes. And it's okay. It will happen to you. It's just part of this broken world that we live in. And I want to just kind of remind, or just as a finish for me, it's just like, I had this problem when I came back to Guatemala, because I have like the reverse culture shock, because I lived in the States for 17 years, and my whole life just changed. My mind, the way I did things, it was just more like in the US. So I was like sometimes too direct, or just, normal things. And I just, and still deal with it, like I wouldn't feel comfortable here in Guatemala. And I deal with this conflict within my life. And then I will go to the States. I'm like, but I'm not from the States either. I have my citizenship, but I'm not from here. I feel weird, And then this guy told me one day, you know what, Johnny? Isn't that cool? And I was like, what do you mean cool? Like, I don't feel right about it. Like, and so he goes, but you know what? We are not citizens of this world. There is something in the Bible that says to not be to be, what's the word? Like influenced or be by like the world. But, because we're not of this world. So I'm just going to tell you guys, if you guys are feeling comfortable in this world, then you might want to check yourselves out, because you shouldn't. You are not of this world. We have a citizen in heaven. We've had a citizenship in heaven. And that's where we should be comfortable with. We are never going to feel comfortable in this world, ever. Why? Because we know we're going into a heavenly, we have a heavenly citizenship. And that brought so much peace to my heart. I was like, you know what, you're right. That's great. So that I want to encourage you guys to, if you don't know Jesus, please talk to somebody, man, and pray with you, Yeah. And then how can you pray for me? I'm always looking for these kind of opportunities to talk about these things. and offer to you guys, if anybody wants to talk, please, please let us know. I don't have any information here besides that, we have a phone number. It's in Spanish, I'm sorry, but it's 5411-2537. There you go. Sorry, I don't have it memorized in English, so it's easier in Spanish. And then you can visit the website. As of right now, I don't have anybody that speaks English, but we can definitely connect anybody. Things you can do it online. So please pray for us that God will continue to open doors for us in this area. And in my part, to commit myself, or just like to tell you guys that we will be praying for you guys too, because I know it's difficult. It's hard. Yep.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Peachcar, for being here with us. It was so great to be able to talk to you about this really important issue. And thank you, everyone who came to join us. As you guys know, we do an episode every week, so we encourage you guys to come next week for episode 8. I'm not sure who the guest is, but I'm sure it'll be great. And so thank you guys. Make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.